In this video, we're going to cover 9 points that you must try and cover in your medical personal statement to medical school. It's really important that you try and cover these points because they're specifically what we're looking for you to address in a personal statement. But if you have already written your personal statement and submitted it, it's also important to bear these in mind, because if we haven't got good examples in the personal statement, we may well ask you about it in the medical school interview. Now, it's really important to try and address each of these points either in a specific paragraph or, because the personal statement itself is only 4,000 characters long, you might have to try and find examples that cover more of these points than just one. And we'll give some examples of how to do that as we go through this video. Now, this may seem really basic, but something that you'll be surprised how often people fail to put into their personal statements is why they want to study medicine. Now, this seems quite obvious. It's a personal statement to medical school. Of course you should put in why you want to study medicine. But people become very fixed on trying to show off their science knowledge or their extracurricular activities and actually forget this basic point. The first thing we are wanting to ask students, and the thing that we ask ourselves as admissions tutors when we read through personal statements, is why does this person want to be a doctor? Please try and give a nice specific example or examples that are personal to you. We read 20, 30, maybe even 40 personal statements at a go. And so having something that's unique and personal to you will make you stand out and make it that much more impactful for you when we come across you and your personal statement and also in your interview. Now, some of you may turn around and say, well, I'm not quite sure why I want to be a doctor, I just really want to do it. Well, that's fine. You may not have a specific personal example, but think about the things that drew you to medicine, whether it's helping people, whether it's applying scientific knowledge to a clinical situation. All of these things, think about them and then draw in examples that you've seen in various different situations, be that on your work experience. And great example of someone who did some work experience and said, well, I want to be a doctor because I just love the integration of science with helping people and applying it to a clinical situation. I saw this when I did my work experience in a hospital, in an oncology clinic, where the doctor was talking about the cancer, particular type of cancer that they had, and the fact that the different cells showed different receptors that this experimental drug could specifically target and destroy, so-called immunotherapy. And I found it inspirational how he was using research and using scientific knowledge to try and make this patient better and to cure them of their cancer. Something as simple as that really shows the passion for the job, but also an understanding of what medicine is. It's more than just science. It's trying to apply it to the patient and trying to get them better. So that sort of example is really powerful, and think about those sorts of personal examples that are specific to you. You will see that some people regurgitate the same things and it becomes very obvious that they've read the same books or they've watched the same videos. So try and tailor it to your specific experience. Moving on from that, something that's really important for us as admissions tutors is that you actually understand what it entails to do medicine. That's beyond knowing what it is to be a doctor, but also what it means to come to medical school. We want you to understand that it's a completely different environment to being at school. And people sometimes ask, well, why do you want people who do lots of extracurricular activities? Why do we want people who do lots of additional exams and different qualifications? Well, the reason is the huge difference between school and university is that university is more self-directed. We want people who will read the things that we teach, but then go above and beyond. They read around the subject. So it's one of the things that we look for in both the personal statement and the interview. We want people who read around the subject. So, for example, those people who do things like a biology Olympiad. One of the reasons we like it is because then they've taken the time to read around their curriculum to learn something above and beyond what they're expected to know. And that's what medicine's all about. Also, we want people who do things like extracurricular activities because part of being at medical school is being social and getting involved with the medical school itself and trying to give something back to the community. One way in which you can show that you tried to get a better understanding of what medical school entails is by going on open days and talking to the medical students. There will be medical students there. Ask them what they do, how their day is, what the good things about being a med student is, what the bad things are. Some of the most powerful answers we hear both in the personal statement and also in the interview are the people who then turn around and say, look, I know that medical school isn't easy. I've spoken to medical students and they've said that they find it difficult to juggle the multiple lectures they have a day and the huge amount of coursework and additional work that they have to do with their other extracurricular activities. But these are my plans to try and do it myself. I've worked on my organisational skills. I know when to ask for help. I know how to study on my own. I've developed the skills to be able to read around subjects on my own. All of these things are really important and are extra star points for you when you come to both the interview and when we come to read your personal statement. Another fairly obvious point that often gets missed in a personal statement is trying to show commitment to your chosen career, in this case medicine. We want to see that you haven't just decided to be a doctor on a spur of the moment. This is something that you've worked upon for years. And it often takes years to really know whether you want to take on the role of being a doctor, which is really a vocation. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You are going to be working beyond the hours that you get paid. And you're going to have a lot of stress, both academically and also physically, in being a doctor, with the long hours and the difficult situations that you're going to be put in. So, showing commitment to medicine means understanding the qualities that a doctor needs and then developing those skills, developing your teamwork skills, your leadership skills, your skills in sciences, your skills in applying information to certain situations, in caring for people and understanding the importance and the rewarding nature of actually helping other people. So this is where those examples of doing your volunteer work are really important. But we very quickly see beyond people who've just done a couple of weeks of volunteering in a different place just to get the tick box versus those people who've really put something into it and either showed with time that they've done it for multiple years, or you speak about specific things that you've got out of your volunteering. So even if you've only volunteered for 2 weeks on a summer school for disabled children, for example, if you then go on to talk about what you got out of it, the fact that you really enjoyed helping and supporting the children, that you learnt about how to communicate with people who have difficulty communicating and how it's a really important skill as a doctor that you saw during your work experience, as just a general example, you start to see how it becomes very impactful and it shows that you're committed to a lifestyle in medicine. And moving on from that, and very similar to that, it's really, really important that you show that you care about people and you've done things to show that caring nature that you have. The reason I say that's important is very, very often, I'd say maybe even 60-70% of the personal statements we read are focused purely on science. And the question we always ask is, well, if you're that interested in the science, why not do a biomedical sciences degree or a physiology degree or an anatomy degree or a biochemistry degree? What is it that's made you want to be a doctor? And the unique part of the medical career and course is not the learning of the science, it's applying that science and understanding to the patient. So you must show that you care about people and that you want to try and work with people. And so this is where doing things like volunteer work and helping out your younger age groups at school, or being a prefect, or having a position of responsibility where you look after other people becomes so useful. And there are examples that you can take from anywhere. Even something as simple as being in an orchestra and helping the people who are new to the orchestra learn the music and supporting them through the different areas of the orchestra and the different sections. It can be something as simple as that. But show that caring nature. It's really important and a major part of what we're looking for in candidates who apply to medical school. Something that people often forget is that it's not a one-way street. We're not just offering you a medical place to become a doctor. You have to try and offer something to us. And some of the most successful applications that we have it's obvious that the applicant really wants to take part in the medical school and become part of the culture of the medical school and add to the school life. So this is where, if you play team sports, for example, that you say you really want to join the university for that particular sport that they excel at. Or, for example, if you play a musical instrument, that you're really passionate about playing musical instruments, it helps you to de-stress, and that if you join the medical school, you'd want to create a string quartet or join their orchestra, for example. Show that you're going to give something back to the community within the medical school, and the more you can show that you're going to give something back to the medical school, the more likely it is that we're going to want to keep you and to take you in our medical school. 2 really important qualities that doctors must have, and medical students as well, is the ability to cope under pressure and to multitask. Very often, people miss out on trying to showcase these qualities, and it's really important that you show them. Show that you can work to deadlines, that you can work under pressure, or if you work, for example, as part of a team, and in that team sport, the pressure of winning, and how you rise to that, and how you're able to cope with the pressure. Don't just give random examples, but actually talk about how you specifically have developed those skills, and what you specifically do to cope with pressure. And it could be something as simple as saying that you really enjoy working with blind children, for example. And one of the things that you do to relieve your stress and the pressure of work and things is by spending an afternoon working with disabled kids, playing and just increasing their confidence. And you find that so rewarding. You can see automatically you're showing your caring side, but also you're showing how you're coping with the pressures of work, that you do things that are fun and enjoyable. Similarly with multitasking, one of the reasons we look for people who do multiple extracurricular activities is we want to see that people can cope with not just the academic rigor of medical school, but also with having a life and being able to engage in the medical school itself. So to be able to multitask is really important, and again, a useful thing to give an example of. As I alluded to before, medical school is very different to being at secondary school or college. You have to take responsibility for your learning and development, and that's not just at medical school, but it goes beyond that to the rest of your career as a doctor. So showing your ability to take responsibility for your learning and developing your own skills yourself is so vital. So again, the examples of things like doing extra exams like an Olympiad, or taking on the Medical Dental Society, or even watching videos like this one, where you're trying to develop your skills and learn new things. And there are multiple videos that are going to come up on our channel where we talk about various scientific innovations and how they relate to medicine. All these things show that you're keen to learn, that you've got an inquisitive mind, and that you're continuously developing. That's exactly what we want from our medical students. We do not want people who are just going to be spoon-fed information. We want people who will go around and read around the subject. So again, using examples like reading Scientific American or New Scientist journals, showing that you're reading around subjects and taking that responsibility for yourself is so vital, and definitely something that we're looking for in medical students. As a doctor, you are going to be dealing with some of the most vulnerable people in society. These are people who are sick, who are scared, and they're going to give you information freely that they've probably told nobody else, and may well be embarrassing information. So we need to make sure that the people that we take into medical school and we allow to be doctors are responsible, that they're respectful, and that they're able to take on these responsibilities and not to shirk them. And this is where giving examples of being, for example, a prefect, or being on the school council, or being the representative for your form, for example. These are all really important things, because what you're trying to show is that you're someone that can take on responsibilities and thrive with responsibilities, that you're not going to shirk them, and that you're going to be a responsible doctor ultimately. So make sure you think about what examples you've got of being responsible and put them in, either in your personal statement or pepper them into your answer at medical school interview. I've alluded to this a few times, but it is so important to show that you can work in a team. Anyone who's seen any amount of medicine or seen patients knows that any patient care is not done by an individual. It is done by a huge team of people. In a GP practice, GPs often work with district nurses, with practice nurses, with community physiotherapists and pharmacists. In hospitals, you see the huge group of other doctors it's not just one specialty. In addition to that, the physios, the nurses, the dietitians, the speech and language therapists, the occupational therapists, the social workers. There are so many people that are so vital to the patient care of even just a single patient. So we want to see in our medical students that they're able to thrive in a team. That's not just to lead the team, but it's also to be a follower, to work within a team structure and to push forward an agenda. And this is why examples such as the sports teams and doing things like Young Enterprise and other extracurricular activities are so important. Because what we want to see is that you're not just going to take over a team, that you're able to work towards a common goal. So again, when you're giving the examples of, for example, playing cricket in a cricket team, you've got to go that step further. And you've got to then say that you've particularly enjoyed the teamwork side of things, or you've helped develop your teamwork skills, and then give a specific example of where you've done that. Again, as an example, played in a cricket team and you had to work really hard as a team because the individual players in the team just weren't as talented as the other team that you were playing against. But because you all worked together, you had a tactic and you kept to your plan. You were able to beat them purely through working well as a team, whereas their team, even though they had some star players, they were all sort of playing for themselves. It's a great way of showing how you can see that teamwork actually gets much better response than just being very talented at something. So we really do look at that. And again, if you haven't got good examples in the personal statement, even if we don't specifically ask, try and work it into your conversation that you've developed your teamwork skills and that you're able to be a good follower as well as a good leader. So in summary, these are all really basic points that we look for in every single personal statement. So if you haven't covered them in your personal statements, it's really important to think about your responses in order to have a good answer in your medical school interview. These are the foundations upon which you will build your application. And so in order to make them credible and powerful, make sure you give specific examples for each of the core things that we went through. Personalize your response. It needs to be very personal to you with specific details so that we can pick your personal statement out of the huge pile that we get.